Hello and welcome to Maki's Closet. On today's class, we'll be drafting an underbust corset gown with a modesty panel. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So I've gone ahead and I've marked my shoulder to bust, my shoulder to underbust, my shoulder to waist and the basque length that I'm working with. So the difference between my basque and my waist is just 4 inches. The next thing I'm going to do is to mark my shoulder divided by 2, which is 7, and I'm going to be adding half inch to it, making it 7.5 because I'm attaching sleeve to this dress. So from there, I'm just going to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant. After going down by 1 inch, I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to draw my shoulder slant. From there, I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to mark my chest line or my armhole. So to get that, you're going to divide your bust by 6 plus 1.5 inch. So after dividing mine, I have 7 inches. So I'm going to indicate and mark at that 7 inches point. I'll go ahead and I'll place my ruler at that 7 inches and I'm going to draw a straight line indicating where my chest line is. After doing that, at my chest line, I'm going to place what I got at my shoulder divided by 2 plus half inch for attaching sleeve and I'm going to mark. Then I'll go ahead and I'll place my ruler and I'm going to draw a straight line connecting. Now after doing this, I'm going to get the middle of this armhole and I'm going to mark. Then from there, I'm going to come in by half inch. So the reason why I did this is for my armhole curve. Then I'll go ahead and I will place my French curve and I'm going to draw my armhole curve. You can as well do this with a freehand sketch if you don't have a French curve for this. After drawing it out with my pencil, I'll go ahead and I'll use my marker to outline the armhole area. The reason why I'm doing this is for it to be visible. After drawing it, I'll go ahead and I will blend it into the chest line. I'll place my tape and I'm going to mark my neck width, which is 3 inches, and I'm going to mark the depth also, which is 3 inches. Now I'm making use of a standard neckline. So what I'll do is to place my French curve and I'm going to draw out my neckline. So you can as well use a freehand sketch for this also if you don't have a French curve. Next step is to insert your body circumference. So at my bust, I'm going to mark my bust divided by 4 plus 2.5 inches allowance. So the allowance is not compulsory to use 2.5. You can use 2 inches or less. So at my underbust, I'm going to place my underbust divided by 4 plus 2.5 inches. Now going down to my waistline, I'm going to be reducing my waistline. So I'm going to be reducing it by 2 inches. So my actual waistline is 28 minus 2, I have 26. So that 26, I'll be dividing it by 4 plus 2.5 inches and I will go ahead and I will mark. After marking that, I'm going to go down to my basque area. So whatever I have at my waistline, that's what I'm going to mark at my basque area. So I'll still mark that my waist divided by 4 plus 2.5 inches. After doing this, the next step is to connect your dots or the marks that you've made already. So I'll go ahead and I'll place my ruler at this point and I'll connect from my waist to my basque length and then connect it back to my underbust. After that, I'll go ahead and I'll connect it also to my chest and my bust line. So you can use a freehand sketch or you can just use your ruler. So I'll just use my freehand sketch and I'll blend it out a bit before using my ruler to draw out my line. So after doing so, I'll take my marker and I will mark out the lines so that it will be very visible. Next, step from here is to open up your pattern to see what you have. I'll extend my chest line to the other part of the pattern paper, and I'll also extend my chest line to the other parts of the pattern paper also. At my underbust, I'm also going to extend the lines, but I'm going to measure it first to make sure I'm accurate. So after marking the point out, I'll place my ruler and I'm going to connect, drawing a straight line. So at my waistline, I'm also going to measure the distance I have at that point, and I'm going to transfer it to this point also, and I will draw a straight line too, connecting my waistline. So another way to transfer your measurement is by making use of a tracing wheel. So if you don't have a tracing wheel, you can as well do yours as mine. So looking at what we have at the picture, you notice that one part of the dress at the underbust is a bit lower, and while the other side is higher. So at the other end, I'm going to be measuring 1.5 inches, and I'm going to connect the lines, drawing a straight line there. So this is to give a tilting or a slanty effect at the underbust, just like in the thumbnail or picture. After marking it out, I'm going to use my marker and I'm going to outline what I have at that point, making it visible. The next part of the pattern we are going to be working on is on the basque side. So at my waist length, remember we added 2.5 inches allowance. So I'm going to mark out that 2.5 inches allowance I put at the waist at both sides, and I'm also going to minus it at the basque side. So the reason why I'm doing this is that I want to actually use my actual body measurement so that I'll get the point where my basque is going to be. And if you notice, the basque is at one side of the pattern. So after marking out 2.5 at both sides, I'm going to measure what I have at the center. So what I have is 13.5. So that 13.5, I'm going to divide it by 3 inches. I'm going to divide it by 3 inches. So dividing it by 3 inches, I have 4.5 inches left. So at that 2.5, I'll go ahead and I'll place my tape, and I'm going to divide the 13.5 inches I have by 3. After dividing it, I have 4.5, and I will still go ahead and place it at that 2.5 inches, and I will mark 4.5 inches, which is my body circumference divided by 4 after minusing 2.5 inch allowance at both sides of my pattern. So from my waist length, I also minus 2.5 inches. So from there, I'm going to slant it to that 4.5 inch. So why I did that is for my waist to align with my back waist, and also to align with the skirt part of my pattern. So you'll be seeing what I mean when I'll be drafting the lower part of the gown. So the reason why we divided the lower part by 3 is that the basque of the dress is at slightly at the side and not at the center. After drawing out this line, I'm slowly going to blend it down to my waistline so that it's going to align very well. After blending out the other line, I'm going to connect from that 2.5 inches, that's the allowance, and I'm going to connect it down to the other line. So the reason why I marked out this 2.5, the 2.5 is my allowance. So I wanted to start drawing the line or the basque from my actual body circumference so that I can blend it down to my allowance, so that the back and the front allowance will align. After marking it, I'm going to slowly connect it back to my waistline, or I'll blend it back to my waist line. I'll go ahead and I'll take my marker and I'm going to outline the lines that I've drawn already. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel and drop your comments at the comment section. Going over to the upper part of the dress, if you can notice, the lining of the upper part of the dress did not start on top, it started halfway. So most times where you can see this is mostly in wedding dresses or some illusion gown, where the lining of the dress or the inner part of the dress does not start on top. So what I'm going to do to this pattern now is that I'm going to fold it. So I'm trying to mark where the lining of the inner part of the dress will start. But before I do that, I'll place my tape at my chest line and I'm going to measure 2 inches. So this is where the armhole of the inner lining or the inner fabric is going to stop. So I'll go ahead and I'll mark it at both sides and I'm going to fold my pattern, sorry. So from there I'm going to draw my neckline. So you can either draw a sweetheart neck or the shape that you like, but from the picture I have, the neckline is a sweetheart neck. So I'm just slightly going to connect it back to my armhole. So at this point, if you have a tracing wheel, you're just going to trace the neckline to appear on the outer part of the pattern. I'll take my marker and I'll outline the neck. So like I said, you can use a tracing wheel to do this or trace it out. So I will take my scissors and I'll cut out my pattern first before working on the upper parts of this pattern. I'll first of all cut out the basque area. So at this basque area, this is where you're going to be creating your boning channels. You're going to do it with a sewable boning or a plastic boning, depending on what you're working with. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be working with a plastic boning because the boning channels there are little and I will try to create exactly what I have. So if you would like to see a sewing tutorial on this, please let me know at the comment section. So I've successfully cut out the lower part. So what I'm going to do is to fold this part together and I'm going to cut it off. So the reason why I'm cutting this off is to know the parts or the measurement to cut for my inner fabric. But while cutting for my main fabric, I'm going to join this part together first and I'm going to cut, and then I'll cut my basque area separately. So just like I said, while cutting for my upper part, I'm going to cut it together, but while cutting for the lining of the inner part, I'm just going to cut this separately and then cut for my basque area and I'll create my boning channels on it. So with this, I'm done drafting the front parts of the pattern. So we are going to the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I've gone ahead and I've marked my shoulder to bust, my shoulder to underbust, and my shoulder to waistline. Just like I did in front, I marked my shoulder slant and I drew my armhole curve. So if you watch my pattern from the beginning, you're going to understand what I did here. So the next thing I'm going to do after here is to insert my body circumference. So at my bust, I'm going to mark my body circumference divided by 4 plus 2.5 inches allowance. At my underbust, I'm going to mark my body circumference divided by 4 plus 2.5 inches allowance. So at my waist, I'm also going to minus 2 inches just like I did at the back. So I did my waist 28 minus 2, I have 26 divided by 4 plus 2.5 inches allowance. So I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to connect what I have. Next, I'll be drawing my neckline. So I'm going to place my tape at this point and I'll measure 3 inches width, just like in front. So coming down to the depth, I'm going to make use of 1.5. After making those marks, I'm going to place my French curve and I'm going to draw a line connecting my neckline. So next, I'll be determining where I want the modesty panel and the loop at the back or yoke at the back to start. So I'll mark exactly 3 inches because from the picture the modesty panel and the neckline started at the shoulder or at the neck. So I'll go ahead and I'll place my tape and I'll measure 3 inches and I'll connect it from the neckline down to the waistline. So at this point, you're going to mark your dart intake. So for my pattern, I'm not going to be making use of that, but for sake of people that are going to make use of that, I'm going to mark that. So the reason why I'm not going to be making use of that for mine is that my that line is almost as at my modesty panel, so I won't be doing that. And I already removed 2 inches from my waistline and it will give me that snatching effect a little at my waist, so it's also doing the work of the dart, so I won't be making use of that. So I'll go ahead and I'll align my dart intake just for people that are going to make use of that. After drawing out that line, I'll mark 1/2 inch at both sides. After marking 1/2 inch at both sides, I'm going to connect it down to my bust point. This is what I have after drawing my dart. So the next step you're going to take is to mark where you want the loop or the yoke part of the dress to start. So from the thumbnail, you notice that it started slightly above the bust or the chest line. So I'm going to mark out my chest line. That will be where my yoke for the upper part is going to start, and I'll outline it with my marker. So from this point at my neckline, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches. So you can decide to make yours smaller or bigger. Mine was bigger than the actual picture. So from there, I'm going to place my French curve, touching that line that I marked and also touching the 3 inches that I marked earlier, touching the shoulder. So from there, I'm going to draw my yoke or neckline at the back, or the opening at the back. After drawing out my keyhole neckline at the back, I'll take my ruler and my marker and I'm going to outline my darts. After outlining my darts, I'll go ahead and I'll outline the 3 inches mark I marked for the modesty panel side. After marking it out, I'm going to take my marker and I will shade off the dart lines. So the reason why I'm doing this is for you not to get confused because of the lines that I have inside of the pattern. Next, I'll be introducing my back tightening, or I'll be removing the puff or the bulginess at the back side. So I'll do this at my modesty pattern side. So I'm going to mark half and I'm going to slant it down to my chest line area. So after marking it, I'll go ahead and I'll use my marker and I'll mark it out properly. After marking it out, I'm going to also shade it out too, so that you won't be confused with it. And I'm going to mark out this area as my modesty panel. At the upper part of the neckline, which is the yoke area, we are going to be introducing a dart line. So the reason for this dart line is to remove or reduce gaping at that part. So at that armhole area that I divided by 2, I'm going to go up by 1 inch and I will mark. So from there, I'll go ahead and I will mark 0.3 inches at both sides. After marking that, I'm going to draw a line connecting a dart, and you'll be blending this dart out of the pattern. So by this way you reduce gaping or any gaping at the back. So with this, my back pattern is ready, and I'll go ahead and I'll cut it out. For the modesty panel area that you have, so whatever you have at this point, you're going to be folding it by 2. That's why I marked times 2. So if you have 3 inches, you're going to be timesing it by 2, which is 6 for your modesty panel. So going over to the yoke side of the back, you're just going to blend out that dart that you marked this way. You're not going to let it affect the armhole. It's just to reduce the loop, the hole at the keyhole line, to make sure you don't have gaping, and you're just going to cut out or blend in your dart also. So for mine, I'm not going to be making use of that. So this is what I have for my back pattern. So we'll be going ahead to draft the down pattern, and this is also the front and the back pattern of this dress. Coming over to your skirt pattern, so the full gown length is 35, and to get your skirt length, what you're going to do is you place your tape where your waistline stopped, and you're going to mark your gown or skirt length. So I have 35, and I'll go ahead and I'll mark 35. I'll also place it at this point, and I'm going to still mark my skirt length or gown length. After marking out the points, I'm going to place my ruler, and I'm going to draw connecting a straight line. After connecting the straight line, I'm going to take my marker and I will outline what I have at this point. So after outlining it, the next step I'm going to take is to mark 2 inches on 2 inches, which will be serving as my turn up allowance or folding allowance for my gown. Next, I'll place my tape, and I'm going to mark 7 inches from my waist for my hip point. So for someone that is much taller, you can make use of 8. So after marking this, I'm just going to connect and draw my lines indicating my hip point. After indicating my hip point, I'm going to indicate where my skirt length stopped, and I'm going to also indicate my waist length. So at my waist length, I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. But before I mark that, remember at the upper pattern, we minus 2 inches. So I'll go ahead and I'll still minus that 2 inches from my waist, making it 26 inches. And I'm going to divide it by 4 or 2.5 inches allowance. At my hip, I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4, which is 10, and I'm going to add 2.5 inches allowance. At my skirt length, so what I have at my hip, I'm going to minus 2 inches from there. But before that, I'll just make a little dot connecting to my hip line. So coming down to my skirt length, in order to have that fitted look at the down part of your skirt, whatever you have at your hip, you're going to minus 2 inches from there. So my hip is 40 divided by 2. I have 10 plus 2.5. That's 12.5. So that 12.5 inches, I'll be minusing 2 inches from it. I'll be left with 10.5. So I'm going to mark that 10.5 at my skirt length. After marking it at my skirt length, I'm going to bring it down to my folding or turn up allowance. So I'll slightly make a dot to my skirt line in order to see if the curve or the line I have is correct or looking good before I can go ahead and I will connect my lines. So I'll cut out what I have for my skirt front pattern. After cutting it out, so this is what I have. So for my front pattern, I was supposed to cut it on fold, which I forgot. So what I did was I used a sellotape to attach the other side. I cut and I used a sellotape to tape it together. So this is what I have at this point. So the next thing you're going to do is to bring that other part of the lower part of the gown, and you're going to place it on top of this pattern. So the reason why you're doing this is to get that or create that basque effect on this skirt, on the lower part. So you can do this after you're done sewing your skirt, or you can do it while cutting your skirt. So your pattern is meant to align at the waistline. Even if it does not align, maybe a pinch or so, but it's meant to align. I'll flip my pattern to the other side because my basque is on the other side of my pattern. So what I'm going to do now is just to place it and trace out. So if you're going to do it this way, that means you're going to cut before sewing, but I prefer sewing my skirt, then I'll place and cut. But the reason why I'm doing this is because it's a tutorial and you need to see how the lower part and the upper part meets at this point. So while placing it, make sure your pattern aligns properly and it does not shake. If not, you're going to get a different design or basque at the lower point or at the lower part of your skirt or gown. After drawing it out, this is what I have, and I'm just going to blend it out properly, and I'll use my marker and outline. And also remember to add ½ inch for joining allowance to all your pattern. So just like I said, I won't be cutting it out yet. I'll fold back my pattern and I'll use it to cut my back pattern. So you can do this basque now, or you can do it later after sewing your skirt. So for your back pattern, what you're going to do is that you're going to add 2 inches for zipper allowance and you're going to slit it. You're going to add 2 inches for zipper allowance and you're going to trace out what you have at the back. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. So please like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification button to get new updates for my channel. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always watching my channel.